Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. We are with Caroline today. We will be talking about thoughts, feelings, and maybe she wants to share a life experience. Hi Caroline. How old are you, Caroline?
How am I?
Mm-hmm.
Well, today's quite relaxing today because it's a holiday from school, so I'm feeling okay today. Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 54.
54.
Yes.
How was your childhood?
My childhood was oh gosh, I can't choose one word to describe my childhood because it had lots of happiness and then a little bit of upheaval and then settling. But when I sort of look back and because I tried to compare it to other people's childhood, it was a nice childhood. Yeah, lots of nice things I can remember about it.
What
Yeah.
did you learn from this stage?
Order.
All that. Oh.
Order. I had a militant mum and a militant dad, and they liked things in order. So you had to do your bit. You had to do things in a particular way. And at the time, as a child, you just fell into place and did those things. So we knew when we woke up what we had to do, what was expected of us, and all these things had to be done before you went to play. And then it was play, but nothing. Sorry, you didn't get to play until you did your chores. I remember my father was the cook, so he taught me to cook. So I remember at 8 years old, that was my first meal, making a scrambled egg, and he watched me. Of course, I made the scrambled egg without butter, so it burnt. And he asked me, what did I learn from that? I said, well, it don't taste the same as how you would make it. He said, well, no, because there was something missing. What do you think was missing? And then I learned from that. But by the time I was 12, full Sunday dinner, full Trinidad Sunday dinner had to be made by me from 12. So that's rice and peas, a chicken, the salad, the provision, the coleslaw, the macaroni pie, and the sweetbread. All of that had to be made. And on Saturdays was soup, and that was again peas and provisions, and that had to be made by me. That was my job from 12. There was something about 12 that they said, right, you've got to do this now. And yeah, at the time it was like, I don't want to do this, but I did it.
Sorry, do you have brothers and sisters?
I have two sisters younger than me. So one is 4 years younger than me, and the other one's about 13 years younger than me. So I'm the first. So all these things were taught. That's one of the things that now when I look back on my childhood, at the time, like I say, I was like, why do I have to do this? But I am so grateful. I cannot put a price on the basic skills that my mum and dad demanded that we learnt for independence, I can't put a price on it.
In that moment, when you were a child, do you feel in that moment was too much?
Yeah, of course it was.
Yeah.
But also we grew up in a time where even though I would say I was quite, I guess today you would say it's challenging because I was always somebody that asked questions. Both my sisters were much milder than me and knew how to work my mum and dad so that there wasn't any conflict. But for me, it was always why? Why do I have to do this? And nobody else is doing it, but I did it anyway because that's what was expected,
Did your sisters learn the same thing
yeah.
like you? Okay.
Maybe they weren't as harsh with my sisters as they were with me because they're not teachers, my mum and dad, but they knew these are the skills that we want from you. Like we had to do lessons as well because both my mum and dad left school very young. They left when they were 14 to help their parents pay bills and pave the way for their siblings to go on to college and university because my dad is a twin and my mother was the first child, and so she left school early to help my grandmother pay the bills so that her brothers and siblings could go to college and university. So they were very adamant that we had to have skills and that education was an important part for us, the three of us. They just didn't negotiate with anything like that. This is what's happening whether you like it or not.
Yeah, sounds like that.
Yeah.
How was your adolescence?
Adolescence was a bit strange because I moved around. So when I say I moved around, I was in Trinidad, and Trinidad.
Trinidad and Tobago.
And Tobago, yeah.
Tobago.
So this was around the 1980s when I think the world was just going through a crisis at the time. Maybe some kind of recession was going on, but I remember looking in the newspapers and not seeing many jobs, not knowing what I wanted to do, what the future held, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And here the UK was just as bad. My mum and dad decided that they didn't really want to stay here anymore, and so we all went to Trinidad and stayed there. I mean, I was there for about 2 years, and then so this is in my late teens. So it was quite a culture shock to be there, but I understood the culture, but it was still a culture shock from being at school here and everything, and the climate and the food and the way of life. It was just different. And so I developed a very strong sense of determination that whatever I planned, I was going to do it, whatever that was at that time.
So that was that you learned.
Yeah, resilience. Oh my
Resilience.
gosh, resilience, and a strong spiritual sense, because my grandmother was very spiritual and very close to me, and so everything was done in prayer. Everything. You will achieve what you need to achieve as long as you pray and you look to the bright side. And she wasn't wrong. She wasn't wrong. I didn't see it like that at that time, but looking back, she was not wrong. As long as you're not praying for materialistic things, you're just praying for strength, for a clear path, opportunities. Yeah, and all of that was there.
So you grateful to have both cultures.
Oh, yeah.
Trinidad and Tobago and England,
Oh,
UK.
yeah. Very much so, because they're very different. I mean, the Caribbean culture is much more direct. You know where you stand. Things are more transparent. You can see it. The British culture is not the same way. You have to tread very carefully. You have to be very diplomatic.
Yeah.
If I tell you some of the things my uncles used to say, I'm like, ooh, you can't say that.
In that way.
No.
Or like that.
But if you're over there, nobody's bothered.
Yeah.
They just accept it. But, you know, here it's very different. You know, you just don't say things in that way. Or you find a nicer way to say it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's definitely... To have the best of both worlds is great. It really is. Rather than to just have that one singular culture. And it's much more difficult to be tolerant of other people if you only know about your tiny little bit, you know. So it makes it harder. How
How has your adult life goes? How is going?
Well, I went to live in the Middle East. And I've been back now in the UK for 2 years. And I think if I didn't have that foundation of a militant guidance, order, and the resilience from going to Trinidad and Tobago, I would not have survived in the Middle East or have that tolerance for a different culture. And I wanted the same for my children. I've not raised my children in the militant way that my mum and dad did, because I want them to have a mind and be able to speak, but speak diplomatically with the correct audience. So I wanted them to have that. And I wanted them to understand the other side of the world. I had many students from the Middle East, but there was some kind of mystery about it until I went there. And other things just became clearer then. Maybe isolation and going into a place where the culture was totally different to the Caribbean and the UK culture, because of course the UK colonized Trinidad and Tobago, so there's some crossover and parallel with the cultures, for especially with administrative sorts of ways that they work. So you had an understanding of some order of how the Caribbean system is and how the British system is, but the Middle East was totally different to that, and it was trying to learn that and live in that again just built on that strength and resilience and tolerance for other people, and understanding that just because people are different, it doesn't mean that what they do is wrong. It works for them in their environment, and if you are there, then that's what you've got to try to do. And I wanted that for my children, because as they eventually grow and move out, they have to be able to survive in this world, and you can't if you don't have that understanding of how things are when you're in a different place.
Yeah.
You know, I went there not thinking that I must enforce my way of working with you. I want to be able to add to what you've already got, not take away what you've got and put mine in place. That's never going to work. And you struggle if that's your mentality, you know.
What's your passion in the life?
I am a great believer that people need to be able to make decisions in their life that suits them at that time, but they need a clear picture of why they're making that decision. And believe it or not, it's only through knowledge, and knowledge only comes through education. And education, I'm not talking about a book, I'm not talking about just reading the internet, but being around people and having that knowledge. Because there are so many things that if you don't know, you can't make a decision based on things you don't know. You have to have that. So I believe in putting people in a position where they can empower themselves to make the right decisions that suit them at that time. For example, when COVID came, there was so many, I mean, everybody has their thoughts about COVID and what it meant to them. But this is when I found that people who I thought I knew, I didn't really know. Because it was entirely up to them whether they took that vaccine or not. It depended on the situation that they were in and who they were going to be around. You can't put your view onto somebody else for that reason. And when we were in the Middle East, we did not have that many choices. We had to have it and just have some faith in God that we would survive. But so many people were saying terrible things that, of course, people were scared. They were scared all over the world. But, you know, eventually I had to say, they said, oh, have you taken the vaccine? I said, well, I've got 2 kids, I've got bills to pay, and the job says I have to have it. So I'm not getting any bad feelings that something's going to happen to me. So I took it. More than once.
So your passion is teach.
Yes.
Is be a teacher.
But giving people the knowledge. Giving people the knowledge so that they can make decisions. So education, I guess. If you want to roll it in one, yeah. You must have the knowledge and the information to make decisions that are right for you.
Yeah.
You must.
What have you learned in your job as a teacher?
Oh my gosh. People say the strangest things.
Okay.
People lack so much confidence in themselves. I don't know why. Maybe it's prior learning, previous life experience, but I guess for me, it's so sad. It's so sad that when I meet people and they don't believe in themselves, and I'm like, you've made it to the classroom door. Surely that means something.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
That means something. The effort that it would take for you to leave your house or wherever that is, wherever you were, and make that journey to the classroom to be with other people and to listen to me is amazing. And they just need to be able to acknowledge that, I think, you know.
Realize, notice it.
Yeah, and that shocks me all the time. It doesn't matter how old they are. I always, over the years, because I've been teaching over 20 years now, whether it's teacher training, whether it's adults, whether it's the elderly, whether it's community, whether it's convicts, Everybody I have met in the class at some point is doubting themselves.
That's the
And I
thing.
yeah, and that's the thing. It just never, I just think, oh, this again.
This again, yeah. Okay.
You know? Yeah.
Do you have children?
I do,
Celia?
yeah, I have twins, yeah.
What have you learned from them?
Oh my gosh. Technology is evil.
Well,
What I've learned from having children is I think I've understood a lot more why my mum and dad were the way they were. Because up until that point I was very judgmental about people and their kids. But once I had my own children, I learned to keep my mouth shut and not judge other people based on the decisions they made about their children, because you can't. Every child is different. Every circumstance is different. And from my children, I think I really learned what love is, because I love them to death, even though they cause me so much heartache. I think that's children, only because they're grown now and they want to go their own way.
yeah.
I'm not necessarily always the way I want to guide them, but it was a joy to watch them grow. In fact, I was just reminiscing about the best years, and it was when they were maybe about 6 to 10. Oh my gosh, those years were just wonderful, amazing. There was no back chat, there was no challenge.
Well, yeah.
So they were great. But I watched them both and think, wow, you know, they're growing into a fantastic young woman and young man, and I'm really proud that, you know, when they go out, that people will say, you've got some nice kids. And then I think, you know what? Yeah, maybe my husband and I haven't done too much of a bad job with them, you know? They're good children. But yeah, I learned the dangers of technology from their perspective, and what's so available to them now that we didn't have. And then the meaning of love, how you could love someone so much, you know?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
What do you think a child needs?
Oh gosh, a child needs love and somebody to listen. You know, when my children were young and I put them to bed because my husband did nights, and I used to watch, maybe this is connected slightly with the people I see in the class over the years. And my daughter would talk. Oh gosh, you know, bedtime was like 8 o'clock, but I'd still be at her bedside at 10. And I used to sit there and think, oh my gosh, when will you be quiet? But then I thought, you know what? Don't think like that. Because there will come a day where she don't even want to talk to you at all. And those days did come. Those days did come, because you reach a teenage year. And I remember being a teenager and being miserable all the time for a bit, not understanding why. But maybe that's just pressures of life at their age. And also teaching teens sort of helped me to remember that as well. They need somebody to listen to them. They need somebody with a very strong sense of direction. They need boundaries, they need order. And they need to know they are loved. They need to know that.
Have you noticed when you are teaching teenagers, for example, that some of them aren't listen at home, or?
Oh, very much so. Because I've at my last job, when I was talking to them in a tone like this that I'm talking to you, they found that very strange. Some of them found that strange, and I could only conclude that maybe either no one listens to them, or they're shouting at them all the time. Do you know what I mean? Or telling them to be quiet, and sometimes you see that, don't you? The little kids are there and parents are telling them to shut up, but then again, you know, I think to myself, I don't know what the situation is. It's not for me to judge why they're telling the child to be quiet or they're walking off. Maybe it's safer for them to do that, you know, than to lash out. But I know from my two, they need that attention, because, again, going back to my grandmother, she used to say the devil finds work for idle hands. We were laughing the other day because there was a movie called John Wick. It's a very violent movie. But this movie came out in 2014. And I said to my husband, I said, I've only just seen that, but it came out in 2014. Why? He said because the TV was permanently on cartoons for the children. The TV belonged to them. We never had it on anything else other than cartoons. So up until they were like 16, the TV was only on things for children because we recognize that the life is for the kids. They won't be with us all the time. You know, if we decided we're having children, then we must give an environment for the children. You know, so it was always like that, and both of them were laughing. The children were laughing the other day. They said, "Yeah, we remember that. There was never anything else on but cartoons."
Yeah, it's classic thing.
Classic. Yeah.
If you had the power to change something in this world, what would it be?
Well, there'd be no war for a start off. There would be no war. And people would sit down and listen to each other and be able to negotiate rather than, killing each other. I wouldn't, if I had the power to do that, I would change that. Sometimes when you get older and people say make a wish, you want good health, you want people to get along, you want people to respect each other and be tolerant of each other. And you don't want people hurting each other, you just don't. I mean, what is the point of that? I don't get it. Happened long before I came to this earth, and it'll happen a long time when I'm gone, because it's just human nature at some point to hurt somebody. But I try real hard to avoid that type of temperament and be around people who are like that, because it's not good. It's not good. It ages you for a start.
What do you do when you are having hard times?
Oh, do you know, when I'm having a hard time, I want to be by myself. I want to be by myself because I need to unpick it. If I'm not having a good day, I want that time by myself to unpick it and figure out, where did it go wrong for me to feel like that, for this to happen, so I can fix it. Yeah.
Are you working in yourself?
I've started to. I've started to have Siri, but the reason why I've started to is because I didn't for so long. For so long I lived for everybody else but me. And as I've reached the wrong side of 50, if you want to have a good life, you must look after yourself. I think my mother is 84 and she can walk faster than me. She can do much more than me. I think because I was a stress eater for so long, and I used to carry or juggle way too many things. So, I'd be studying, have 3 jobs, and the kind of work and the environment that I was in, I thought, you've got to stop this. That's one of the things I learned from the Middle East. One of the things I wanted to do when I was planning to go there, I wanted an off button. I wanted that figurative off button where you just press it and everything stops. And believe me, it did there. If you wanted to just go, I'm not doing that, and stop, you had the power to do that. And it was usually workload. The other thing I wanted was that I wanted to spend time with my children, and I was able to do that. And I wanted the opportunity to read a book anytime, whenever I wanted, without having lots of other things to juggle. And I was able to do that there. When I returned, I didn't stop being like that. But I went to a job that was highly stressful because of the way the management worked and the nature of the people I was teaching. So if you're in a place where you're teaching high needs and people whose mental well-being is not being taken care of, and you have a system that doesn't really support you in that, you know what you have to do, but you're working against your core. You're working against what you really feel. Eventually it's going to catch up with you and you have to leave, or you have to get out of that, because if you don't, it's only going to drag you further and further down. And that's what was happening. So when I returned from the Middle East, I gained a lot of weight. Over there I didn't. Over there I was quite healthy, and even though it's very hot. There's just certain things, maybe because of the heat, certain things you don't crave for. The stress is different because there is an off button. So it's all the stress at once. And then the off button comes, you go, oh, so you have time to recuperate and start again. Here the stress drags over the week. You have a small window to recuperate, but you haven't fully recuperated and you're back in it again. So you never really get rid of that stress. And that's what happened. And weight gain, and then all sorts of other things, inflammation, joint pain, blah, blah, blah. The list went on.
Do you think should be or could be very good idea work, for example, 4 days per week? Or
Well, I did that there.
3 days per week for around 6 hours to have time to do other stuff.
You have to have work-life balance, and you're absolutely right. Work-life balance is what I went to the Middle East for, and that's what I got. But when I came back, no. Even though they told us it's a 4-day week, it was not a 4-day week where I was before. 7 days a week non-stop because of the nature of the information that you needed to record and how you were delivering your lessons. It was hard. Where I am now, I have absolute work balance. Where I am now, it took a while for me to believe it, a long time for me to believe it. But now I finish work and I don't have to think about work till the next day. I have weekends, which I never thought existed at all. I didn't know what the days were when I returned and I was in the last job. But here it's definitely a 5-day week, or 4.5, because I work 3 long days and then I can work up to lunchtime on Friday. And every day at Syria, it does not matter whether it's snowing, raining, I walk every day. And now it's just part. I take the umbrella, I take a scarf. I don't care what the weather is like outside. I get home, I put my walking boots on and I walk. I don't live far from a park. So because I've set myself 10,000 steps a day. And so if I haven't done it at work, which I won't do it at work because it's more desk based, then I will do that. I'll go to the park and walk around the park and come back. And it doesn't matter what time of the night either. I will still. I won't go in the park if it's dark. But now that the weather has changed, I can still I can go and walk around the park up until about 6:30.
That's a good one.
And I do it. Yeah, I do it every day now.
What love means for you?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one, isn't it? What does love mean? I think love means love is linked with kindness and care, showing that somebody will do that little bit extra for you or consider you. So like my son, every day I get a hug, every day, and always asks me how you're doing, or what's it been like today, is there anything I can do for you? I sometimes think there's a reason behind that, but he does it every day. And I also remember when he was little, about 5 years old, you give him a kiss on the cheek and he'd wipe it off. He didn't like that.
Well,
but that's little children, isn't it? So it's those little things, that the dishes are done, or somebody's bought you a little gift. It's acts of kindness and knowing that that somebody's going to come and do something for you if ever you need them to. That's what love is.
Are you proud of yourself?
I am. Very proud. When I think of all the different things I've done in my shop, because I don't think I've lived long, but I've certainly packed a lot in the time that I've been on this earth. Packed a lot of things in, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time, Caroline.
Thank
Hope everyone enjoy this interview and take the most thing that you can help you with your own life. I hope everyone is doing well, and See you in the next interview.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.